All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's meeting where we are going to take a look at the new ConsoliDator Plus demo unit from Precision Digital. Today's meeting is all distributors and resellers who would have an interest in showing this new ConsoliDator Plus demo unit. And so before we get started, let me get a few bookkeeping items out of the way. First, you have probably noticed that you're all in listen-only mode. That means that we do not have dozens of open phone lines for dogs barking, kids crying, other sound noise that could interrupt the webinar. In addition, I want to address the number one question that we always get right at the beginning, which is the questions being, will this webinar get recorded? And can I get a copy of the slides for this webinar? Well, the answer to both questions are yes. The webinar is being recorded. You should see an email in your inbox probably mid-next week with a recording of this webinar. And that same email will include a link to where you can find the slides that we're going to go over here today. I would also like to draw your attention to the lower left-hand corner of your screen. That's where you will see a chat box that's going to allow you to interact with me during the presentation. So if you have questions about the demo unit or the ConsoliDator Plus just in general, please feel free to type them in there. I can't promise you we'll get to all of them, but as we go, I will try to address ones that are easy to talk about here. And if we don't get to your question, I assure you we will follow up with you afterwards. One last item, there is a survey upon the completion of this meeting. If you would just please take 1 minute and fill that out, I sure would appreciate that. It lets us know how we're doing and what other ideas you may have to provide you the kind of content you're looking for. With that, I'm going to go ahead and jump on into presenting myself, which is I am Joe Ryan, VP of Sales and Marketing at Precision Digital. And my big takeaway here is that this webinar is going to help you sell this amazing new product. We are really happy with the ConsoliDator Plus and the reception it's received. In its first year of launch, it has made the ConsoliDator product line, or it has been the highest selling year of our ConsoliDator product line. So we just think that this has done a really great job of taking over as a next generation ConsoliDator product, but also really expanding the ConsoliDator Plus out into new markets and new applications. And so let's talk a little about the agenda we have for today. So first, I want to review what's included with the demo unit so that everybody has a good understanding of what you're getting with a ConsoliDator demo. I want to take a look at some real-world application screens. In other words, screens that myself and my team have set up for folks in actual applications, give you an idea of what you can do with this product. We're going to talk about where and how to sell the ConsoliDator Plus, ways to get this demo in front of your customers. If this is sounding good to you, we'll briefly talk about how you can get a demo of your own. And if the demo is not for you, then I still want to talk about how you can sell the ConsoliDator Plus, because I think you'll find the product is, even if right now you don't think it's quite the right time for you to be working with demo units. Before I do that, however, I'd really like to know how familiar you are with the ConsoliDator Plus. Are you an expert in this product line? Are you a little familiar with it? Are you aware it exists? Or are you still wondering what this thing is that we're talking about here today? And while you're answering that, I will say we've had a couple of people mention that they lost their audio. So if I'm still coming through to most of you, if you could do me a favor and let me know, I'd appreciate that. To those of you who lost the audio, you're obviously not hearing this, and I do apologize. All right, and by the looks of things, it looks like most of you are somewhat familiar with this product, or you have at the very least heard of it. I am surprised to see there are a few of you who aren't even sure what a ConsoliDator Plus is. Well, hopefully by the end of today, you'll know that in depth. And there's even a few of you who consider yourselves to be experts. And so I thank you who have been working with this already and consider yourself an expert in this new product. Also, I appreciate all the feedback that the audio is coming through clear. So what are your takeaways? Well, my hope is that by the end of this webinar, I want you to be excited to sell this new product to your customers. which could be in almost any industry. I guarantee you, your top 10 customers could have a use for this product. I want you to be so excited you reach out to get a Consolidator Plus to show those customers. And I want you to have the skills needed to sell the Consolidator Plus and to recognize the fact that you've got opportunities for it now. This is not something you have to go and do missionary work with. I want you to see it, say, wow, I have people who need to see this tomorrow, and talk to us about how to make that happen. So given that you are roughly familiar with this product, you have a vague idea for the most part about what it's about, let's just do a quick review of what the Consolidator Plus is. So it's a multi-channel controller for process, display, alarm, and control capabilities. And so what are we saying there? We're saying it takes in multiple inputs, has multiple outputs, and really can be configured to be both the display element, the alarm element, and the control element of just about any process application. It's very versatile in how you both build the hardware, your inputs and your outputs, as well as the capabilities of it from a programming perspective. The biggest takeaway here, okay, this is the most important thing you can remember about the Consolidator Plus right here, this line. Power of a PLC and an HMI without having to write any code. You can, in fact, we'll do it later, you can change the setups of this Consolidator incredibly easily. You get the look of an HMI without having to tell it exactly where you want the text to be, exactly what color that bar graph is going to be, or where it's going to appear. And more importantly, perhaps even than all that, if you decide you want to make a change, you can do it with a few button clicks. It doesn't take you an hour and a half of code writing. There's no ladder logic, there's no C, and yet it'll do almost everything you do with PLCs and HMIs. So if you love writing the code, maybe this is not the demo for you. If you want something easy for you and your customers to use, stick around. The Consolidator Plus will take 4 to 20 milliamp inputs, flow meter pulse inputs, digital inputs, and it's a Modbus RTU slate. On it, you've got numeric and bar graph format display on a large 5.7-inch LCD in full color. You can get multiple relays that have all sorts of user-definable actions, 4 to 20 milliamp outputs, digital outputs, Modbus RTU slave capabilities, and we can now do Modbus over Ethernet, which is our first product that can do that. And we're real happy about the way that's working out. Common question, is it field expandable when you have all this flexibility? Well, yes, you can definitely add new I/O cards and new modules to it in the field, no problem. We've got 32 timers to control all sorts of processes and events, and we'll see a few examples of why those are valuable. And of course, this free Consolidator Plus configuration software, you don't actually have to do anything through the front screen, so that's how I'll be showing it to you today. So this is all about the demo. Let's talk about what you get with that demo. Obviously, from this picture right here, you can see that the demo comes nicely packed inside a box that's filled with foam to protect it, so you could throw this thing in the back of your trunk and carry it off when you're ready to show it to somebody without damaging anything. The demo itself is made up of the Consolidator Plus. And we give you a Consolidator Plus that has all of the modules in it. So you have one analog input module that's 4 analog inputs. You have one pulse input card that's 4 pulse inputs, one relay output card for 5 relays, and one analog output for 5 analog outputs. So though not all of those are necessarily being used with the default demo setup, if your customer wants to try something out, or you yourself just want to connect it up to one of your transmitters or flow meters, you can go ahead and do that because we give you a wide range that covers all the different hardware possibilities in this product. To generate signals and give you something interesting to look at, we've got our PDD9000 signal generator, a little handheld unit that produces a 4 to 20 milliamp output. It comes with a light and horn mounted to it, which is both an accessory that we offer, but also a great way to show a whole room that your alarms are going off, that you have buttons that can trigger and acknowledge the horn or the light. And we give you all the cables you're going to need. So you get a USB, and if you need to do something with Modbus over Ethernet, we even include the Ethernet cable. And of course, as I said earlier, it comes in a nice protective carry case, so you can bring it in somewhere and it looks impressive, but also you can throw it in your trunk, let it get banged around as you drive customer to customer and know that this isn't going to get damaged. In addition to the hardware, we give you some literature. We give you a stack of our solutions guides, which are great to leave behind. But more importantly, something you can go through with your customer page by page and show them all the different applications Precision Digital can help them solve. We give you the instruction manual for the product. If there's some setup that you want to try out, you can dive into the programming with that. And we give you ConsoliDator Plus actual size posters. What's great about this is an actual size consolidator. So you can leave this behind and they can really see how big that display is, how big the unit itself is. We give you some sample screens. And then on the back of the poster is all the information you'd find on the data sheet. Sample setups, some specifications, all the accessories. So, sorry about that. So let's take a look at the demo itself for a minute. You'll see that the light and the horn is mounted to a bracket on that ConsoliDator Plus, so you don't have to hold that. We secure it there. We include these mounting feet so that you can put it on the desk and it's going to be angled to show to your customer. We do all the wiring for you, so all you have to do is plug one cord into the wall. You just got one power cord on this thing that needs to be plugged in. And we even put strain relief on all the wires to make sure the demo is going to last. Here's your 9502, which is what serves as your 4 to 20 milliamp signal source, which is how you get everything to trigger. So this really is designed to be carried in somewhere, put down on the desk, and walked through with a customer. You know, this is not just a product and some accessories we're throwing in a box and sending out to you. Good luck, pass it around the room. This is really a demonstration product. So that having been said, let's take a look at some of those setup screens so you can see how this demo is configured out of the box. This is exactly how it is when you take it out of the case and you start showing it to your customers. So I'm going to show that to you by sharing my screen with you here today. You're going to take a look at the demo that I've got sitting here on my desk. So, hello everybody, this is actually me over here. So this is the demonstrator that I have on my desk that I use when I'm working with the ConsoliDator Plus. And you can see the first screen that pops up is the most basic application, 4 tank levels coming from 4 level transmitters. They're all showing gallons. In this case, we've given a screen, which is the name for this setup of information. We've given the screen a name, tank levels 1 to 4. We've given each channel a name, so tank 1, tank 2 water, tank 3, tank 4 oil. We've selected their units to all be gallons, and we've got them all just showing in gallons of done decimal points. One neat thing, by the way, you can already see that makes this display nice is that you've got clear decimal points and commas. Everything's very easy to read. Now, we have the most basic application of the new color features going on here. All we've done is made my water tanks blue, my oil tanks black, and you'll notice that the text lines up with that blue and black coloring, so it's a little easier for me to connect those. Coming off the ConsoliDator Plus, I've got my PDD9000 signal generator, which is telling me I've got 10.86 milliamps coming out of it. And as I change my dial on that signal generator, you can see that it changes my tank level. Only one level changes per screen, so it's much easier for you to follow. So this is nice to show the basics of the screen. So for example, I've got a line for my alarms on each one of these channels, both high and low. And when I pass that alarm line, I'm going to go into my alarm state. I've got my alarm set up to turn my channel yellow. My alert goes off in the bottom left to let me know that I've got an issue. And we have relays on it, which if I turn my camera up here, you can see turn on the horn and light that we've got attached to it. Now, if you do this in person, you're going to have the horn screaming right now. And when the horn's going off, you'll hit this act button in order to turn off the horn. The other soft keys are set up to manually let me move left and right through my channels, and to start and stop auto-scrolling through the screens, which I've totally disabled for the demos so we can walk through it at our own pace. It's worth noting that right below these soft keys are actual rubberized push buttons, and so you can push those rubber buttons in order to get the screen to work. It's not a touch screen, but these soft keys change what each one of those buttons do on each screen. So when you hear me pushing buttons, or I say I'm going to push that button, what I'm actually doing is pushing these rubber keys underneath that soft key that aligns to the location of the soft key. So for example, if I wanted to acknowledge my alarm to turn off the horn that would be going off, I'd push the act button, and you can see it press right there. The alert key, for example, over here, if I push that, gives me, gives me the status of all of my alarms. So if on any channel I have an alarm go off, I'm going to get that alert, which is a really nice way to draw your attention to it if it doesn't happen to be sitting on the screen that has the alarm. Now, as I said, this is the most basic application for the consolidator, what we see most often, which is someone trying to show, oftentimes, multiple tanks per level. So I'm trying to show multiple tanks per level and use some basic color capabilities. You can do a lot more than that. So let me bring my alarm down back to normal mode again. You can do a lot more than that with color, for example. So I'm going to hit this right arrow to move on to my next screen, which is the same screen, only with lots of color. You see, though the last screen didn't take advantage of it, I can program every bar graph, every text background, and the text itself, all to be one of any of 64 different colors. I can also make the alarms be multiple different colors. So I can have yellow alarms, red alarms, green alarms, purple alarms, you name it, and assign each one of those to either the channel or the alarm. Now, generally, in this presentation, we're going to see that the alarms are going to be yellow or red, yellow being more for warnings, red being more for dangerous situations. But you can set it up however you like. It's also worth noting that on my screen, you see some waves happening. Those are not actually on the unit. That's just a artifact being created by the web camera. So you'll have to believe me that in person, it looks a heck of a lot better than what you see here on the webcam. I'm sure many of you are doing these kinds of meetings yourselves and have run into that. So this is the kind of color situation you could set up if you want a lot of color, where now you can see, okay, I've got a green tank that matches to my green, aqua to aqua, blue to blue, purple to purple. It's very easy to follow. Well, what if I don't have an interest in bar graphs? Really, all I want is a bunch of numbers. Well, you can do that too. Uh-oh, I can't do that. Instead, I've got this screen set up with 4 bar graphs, and I don't have any numbers on it. Well, how did that happen? I don't know. Somebody must have come along in between this demo and the last one and have changed my setup. Well, that's okay, because the ConsoliDator Plus has the ability to return to a last known good configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into what I saved as my backup memory. I'm going to restore my backup, confirm I want to do it. And now, when I go back to that screen, that's what I had originally intended to see. I originally intended to see 4 big numbers with no bar graphs. And that's a great way for me to show you the fact that one of the great features you can demonstrate is the fact that you can save a known good configuration. You can, of course, put a password in there. You can lock it up. But people find ways to make changes to these products. And you're going to make changes to this while you're showing it to your customers. They want to see you do something with it. But it has the ability to not just restore to the factory default, but for you to save a backup configuration in memory and restore to it. For a demo, that's a phenomenal feature. It's also nice for your customer out in the field. I had talked about the fact that you don't need to do any code work in order to change the look of this screen, unlike, for say, an HMI. If I wanted to go back to that screen with all bar graphs instead of just 4 big numbers, if I didn't really care what the numbers of gallons were, and all I wanted to see was a bar graph indication for each of my screens, let me show you how easy that would be to get back to. Go to my menu. I'm going to go select the screen that we were looking at. Again, that's the actual visible screens and the configuration of them. Go into Setup, select that screen that we were on, which was screen 3, which was just another way of looking at tanks 1 to 4. And in this case, all I needed to do is go down to these little check boxes where I select if I want to show the bar graphs, which I'm going to check yes. And I'm going to go down here and say, oh, bar graphs only? Yeah, that sounds good too. I'm going to click Save. That's it. I checked a couple of things off, and now all of a sudden I have a totally different display. If I were to need to resize that display, because I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to take out one of those tanks, put it on a different screen, well, that's easy to do too. I'm going to go down here and let's say tank 4 oil. I really don't want that on there. So I'm going to remove that from my screen. Click OK, save that screen, go back up to the front. Totally resized, everything is repositioned. Now I've just got 3 bar graphs on there. It's very easy to work with. You can change the names of items, change the colors of items, change what shows up on the screen, and it only takes you a matter of seconds, not hours, to get it to look right. This is a tank detail screen that we constructed. This is for a customer who wanted to have, like what we were just looking at, 4 tanks on a screen, although you can have up to 8 items displayed. They just wanted 4. And they wanted it to auto scroll between those 3 screens, each showing 4 tanks. So it would just show you tanks 1 to 4, then 5 to 8, then 9 to 12. But then we added these detail screens that were not part of the auto scroll that you could manually use the left and right arrow to move into. And this gives you all kinds of information for individual screens. So this is the detail for tank 1. You've got the bar graph, just like we saw earlier. Same color code. We see it in gallons. We also see the level in feet and inches, all off that same 4 to 20 milliamp signal. We have a constant on the screen, just telling someone what the maximum tank height is. So I know it's 19 feet, 9 inches. Well, now I also know that that's of 30 feet. We have a rate of change alarm. So you'll see as I make some changes to my 4 to 20, you'll see the rate of change there. And if my rate of change is too high, I have an alarm that goes off based on it. And that was being used for leak detection. They wanted to be able to set it up so that they would know if their tank level was dropping but their pump wasn't engaged. You can do that using a digital input and the ability to have alarms based on and conditions. And then at the bottom, we had the actual transmitter milliamp value. So if anything looked strange, they could just check what was coming in from the transmitter itself. We also have the ability to simulate the input. So I'm going to hit that simulate key, and then I'm going to click OK. Actually, I'm not. Before I click OK, I'm going to click plus. And what this is doing is it is tricking the ConsoliDator Plus into thinking that my milliamp value is going up. You'll notice that my transmitter out is not actually changing, but it's the ConsoliDator is going to behave as if it were. So it will enter alarm states, it will trigger relays, etc., all as if this were my new value. This is a great way to check your system, to test it occasionally. And when you're done using simulate, you can do one of 2 things. You can click real to return your real value, or you can click OK and leave it in simulate. Now, if I do that, in fact, let me get out of alarm for a minute, show you what happens. If I do that, if I walk away, so an operator might bring this out of alarm, think they're all set, click OK, and now wander off, leaving it in simulate mode. And you'll notice that no matter what screen I'm on, I get a yellow alert down here. And if I press that alert key, it's telling me, hey, Joe, you left this in simulate mode. And it's giving me a quick way to get out of it. So I'm going to hit that real button. And now that channel is going to be back to regular operation, no longer going to be in simulate. So you could build a tank detail screen similar to this for every single one of your tanks and only make it accessible if somebody goes up and manually scrolls to that screen. It doesn't have to be a part of your regular cycling display. Duplex pump control is a very common application that we see for both our regular panel meters as well as the ConsoliDator Plus. Obviously, on the ConsoliDator, it's usually for multiple tanks, or in this case, multiple sumps. Sumps are great to discuss with your customers when you are trying to essentially make a cold call with the ConsoliDator Plus, because everywhere has a sump. Everywhere wants to monitor their sumps and manage it well, because the cost of a sump system failure is massive. So what we're showing here on this duplex pump controller screen is obviously the fact that we've named it duplex pump controller. We've got the sump level of 2 feet 8 inches. And then you've got the fact that your sump status and pumps are off. You can see both pumps are off. And we've got the runtime and the cycle time for each one of our pumps. Over on the left here, we've got a bar graph that shows you the status of the sump. So I'm going to increase that sump level slowly. And when we pass by that first alarm, it's going to turn my pump status to draining. It's going to set off a yellow alarm to let me know that my sump is filled up and is currently high. And you'll see that pump 1 is turned on. It's now tracking my runtime and it incremented a cycle. So I'm going to pretend that my pump has drained my sump and returned us to normal operating conditions here. And as you expect, the next time it goes off, you're going to see pump 2 go off, and note that cycle is going to go from 110 to 111. If they can't keep up and it passes by that high alarm, now I've got a red alarm. I could have it trigger additional relays. Both of my pumps have turned on to try to either drain it down because it can't keep up or because one of the pumps has failed. And I return to normal conditions. Now, in this particular screen, one of the things that we added was the ability, to reset your pump information. So like reset 2, reset 1. So let's say you want to do pump maintenance every 1,000 hours or 100 cycles. Well, you can see that information here. And if you want to go down and check your pump, do some maintenance on it, and restart that cycle count, all I have to do now is come over here and reset, for example, relay 1. It's going to ask me to confirm, which I will. And now my runtime and my cycle time have been reset for pump 1. So this is a very common application for the ConsoliDator Plus. A similar but slightly different application is for lift station control in wastewater plants. So in this case, you've got a lot of that same information you saw before. Your wastewater level, just like your sump level, pump status, pump 1 and 2 runtimes, and their statuses. But in this case, what we've done is we've added PSI, pH, and percent methane coming from 3 other transmitters. So in this screen, we've actually got 4 transmitters, information being shown. We're showing the lift station level, and we're showing you your pump information, just like we did on the last screen. It's showing you the status, whether it's draining, pumping, which one's on or off. One customer, similarly at a wastewater treatment plant, just wanted to show effluent rate and totals. But this was an outdoor application, so they wanted it big and in high contrast so they could easily see it in the sun. Well, that's no problem. Instead of showing 8 items on the screen with a bar graph, all we did is just show 2 items, and it automatically rescales it to show it nice and big so they could see this from 30 feet away. The application and way of setting this up for flow meters that's proving quite nice is the ability to color code your flow meters and your totals. So everything is nicely paired up. You can easily tell that this flow meter 1's gallons per minute is paired up with this total 1 in gallons. And obviously, in a real-world application, we don't call this flow and total 1 through 4. We would name this after the actual flow meter locations or serial numbers. And then you'd have your flows and your totals a little more clearly described. Those are all changeable. The idea is that you can show all that information on one screen, label it up however you want, and take advantage of color very easily to match up those flow rates and totals. In this case, all of the totals reset with a single button key. Confirm I want to do it. But I could actually use all 4 of these buttons to have resets for my totals 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is a gas detection application. This particular screen was set up for methane, though the customer had a number of different gases that they were measuring. And all we did was duplicate this screen for each one of the gases they were measuring. This was being done in essentially what was a garage. And when the gas levels got too high, they wanted to both track how long the gas level had been high for. They wanted to use an output relay to turn on their vent fans and use an output relay to trigger all their automatic garage doors to open. So when their gas levels went up, they got over 10%, they got a yellow alarm, which could put a relay out to, for example, the light and horn. You'll notice that it's going to start counting my exposure time. So right now we have 30.7 minutes, 30.8 minutes. And so that tracks up how long we've had this gas alarm present. And it has turned on the fan and it has opened the door. By the way, you'll notice that I can change these annunciator indicators to be whatever I want. So I had it closed, now it's open. We'll see a panel later that has a lot more variety there because these are customizable messages. If I keep going up, eventually I get a red flashing alarm, and I can have another relay go off to indicate the fact that, boy, you got a real problem on your hands here. So presumably, turning on the vent fan and opening the doors lowers my gas levels down. And when it clears, I have a green alarm for a few seconds, and then my vent turns off and my door status closes. One more time, you'll notice that we actually have a relay delay in here because because the gas is clear at the sensor, they didn't want to immediately open or close the doors and turn off the fan. They wanted to have a delay in there for a little while. In that case, it was 5 minutes. In this case, it's a few seconds before you turn off the fan and close those doors again. Once I make sure everything is okay and I'm all set with my exposure time, I'm going to hit the reset key, reset my exposure time to 0, and now it's all set for the next application or the next event. I talked about those annunciator indicators. the Consolidator Plus makes a great annunciator panel. So anywhere you know you have customers that have those old panels with like the little plastic squares in it, and obviously those don't change, they just light up. The Consolidator Plus makes a great alternative to that because not only do you get more outputs that you can configure based on the state of those annunciator indicators, but you could be basing the input to those annunciators on 4 to 20 signals, street closures, really any kind of alarm you can set up in the Consolidator Plus. And you get to name them whatever you want. So for example, north pump off, vent fan off, feeder valve in feed position. Whatever I want to name them, I can. And then unlike just having a little LED turn on and making it yellow, I can set these up to display whatever I want in their alarm condition, be whatever color I want. Maybe I can have them flashing or not. Maybe I want them to change the text color or blink. However you want to configure it, you can do that. And you get a lot more information here, right? So I know my circulation pump is actually running. That's what this is telling me. I know my vacuum pressure has a warning. I can select every panel to have its own individual color. And of course, when they clear, they just go back to normal. So it's a phenomenal way to replace those old annunciator panels and get them something that both shows better and carries more capability. And the last screen I've got here is a screen that shows 8 bulk tank level or 8 bulk tank weights. This is from an application where a customer had 16 of the old tricolor bar graph meters, the kind that if you're lucky might have a percentage display on it, but generally just go up and down on a almost like a thermometer-looking vertical LED bar graph. And so we replaced those with a Consolidator Plus. 2 screens showed a total of 16 channels. All of them were just showing various bulk tanks. And so what we've got here is your green is okay, your yellow is a warning, your red is an alarm, and they go off as either a high, high, a high, a low, or a low, low. And you can even see that it color codes the line, right? So this red line is my high, high, goes all the way across all of my tanks. Yellow goes all the way across all of my tanks, et cetera, et cetera. And so much like those bar graph indicators, here you can see I've got my channel in the middle here that's green because everything's okay. It goes yellow when I pass that yellow alarm level and red when I pass my high, high. As I come back down, which you may have noticed, by the way, the alarms show you when it's going to reset. See that little downward L-shaped piece tells me where the deadband is going to end and my alarm's going to reset. It goes back to yellow. I clear the yellow alarm, it goes back to green. And you get that same thing going down, right? So I can go to yellow when I get too low, red when I pass my low, low. And then once I correct the issue, back to yellow, back to green. Now, these all happen to be using green, yellow, and red because it's designed to mimic those bar graph meters. In reality, I could have every channel here use different sets of colors. I could have them all use yellow and red for alarms, but make the green status indicator a different color, so it's easy to jump to the channel I'm looking at for the numbers. I could remove the numbers altogether and just have the bar graphs if that's what we want, as we saw earlier. So when you see those, for lack of a better word, those sort of junky panels with those old bar graph indicators in them, this is a great way to replace those. And so that walkthrough we just did, though a little lengthy and in-depth, is exactly what you can do with your customers. Only you do it a little more quickly, see when their eyes light up, and when you see that reaction, that's when you dive in deep. And your Consolidator Plus demo comes set up with all of these screens ready to go, and they're loaded into that backup, right? So if you do change something and it's not behaving right, it's very easy to restore it back to your backup condition. So there's a couple of questions that came out of that discussion. The first question I've got is, can the tank height be set in meters? And the answer to that one is absolutely you can. There is a whole suite of default settings for units that come standard in the Consolidator Plus that it will do. You can do automatic unit conversions between if you're doing any math functions. But if you don't like our suite of standard features, though meters is a standard unit, you could make your own. So if, for example, you wanted to have it in bottles, and who knows how big your bottle is, but you want to know how many bottles worth of liquid are in a tank, you could design your own custom unit and just make your custom unit in bottles. Another question that I got is, does the ConsoliDator Plus demo come pre-assembled, or do you ship us a kit of parts? No, you get it fully assembled. You get it in a cardboard box with that black case inside of it. And when you take out that black case, it's all in the foam. It's wired. The light and horn are attached. Everything is ready to go. We put strain relief on the cables, you name it. So you don't have to do any work before you show up at your customer's location ready to show it off. You may want to connect up your transmitter to it. In fact, I highly recommend you do that. But that will, that's a secondary thing that you could choose to do. That's certainly optional. It would teach you a little bit about the ConsoliDator Plus and give you a way to sell your transmitters with it. So I think it's a great choice to do that, but you don't have to. So how and where do you sell the ConsoliDator Plus? Well, that's easy. All you need to know is who do you look for to sell it to them? Where do you find that person? What are you providing? And how do you close the deal? So who do you look for? Well, you're looking for engineers, INC techs, maintenance managers, project planners, automation specialists, plant operators. In other words, anybody who works with this kind of equipment. Because it's so versatile, if they work with instrumentation, they're somebody who see the ConsoliDator Plus. This is not a niche product that only gets shown to boiler operators or tank farms or just wastewater treatment plant operators. Anybody who's hands-on with instrumentation or any engineers that specify instrumentation can see this product. And by the way, these are the folks you're talking to already, right? Any calls you're making, you're almost certainly going to see these folks. So the answer to really who do you look for is the person you're already going to be in front of anyway. Where are the opportunities? Well, of course, they're in the plant. Bring this with you on your calls. That's where you're going to find interest in this. Don't wait for someone to call you and ask to see it. Walk in the front door with it. Look for opportunities to replace older, inferior equipment. We talk about that bar graph meter application. I mean, look at this thing. Which would you rather have? A new ConsoliDator Plus with enhanced capabilities and an easy-to-read display, or this huge mess of light-up buttons, or light-up indicators, buttons, and a whole panel full of those old bar graph indicators that just sort of more difficult to read? You're looking for any newer existing systems, like anywhere that uses tanks. There's going to be at least one measurement, probably 4, on every tank you see. Lift stations, sumps, again, a great one because everyone has them. Anywhere where you've got truck filling stations, influent or effluent flow in any plant that has to be worried about how much is coming in, how much is going out. Essentially, all your current customers could be ConsoliDator Plus customers. It's a great cold call tool. Some of you in the audience, based on your locations, I know are not doing calls, but some of you are also. So if you're making cold calls on locations, this is a great thing to bring with you because it's so versatile and it's so applicable to so many different people in the process industry. Really, anywhere there's a 4 to 20 milliamp signal or flow meters, you could sell this product. And you can create the need for it. Don't have to wait for someone to say, please bring me a display, or I'd like to see a ConsoliDator Plus. When you show it to them, you will find that they have a need for that. What are you providing? What's the advantage you bring by doing this? Well, of course, number one thing is convenient process information. You're giving them the ability to see the information that they're spending thousands of dollars on to measure wherever they want, in a nice, convenient package that's easy to read. Now, of course, you're also bringing process visibility, which has all kinds of improvement advantages, an all-in-one solution that could be the heart of their control system, improved safety. Operators are safer when they understand what's going on. Local system redundancy. A lot of these plants do have the control going on in the control room. However, there's more and more a call for local redundant control to prevent spills and accidents. Anywhere you've got process control and automation needs, the ConsoliDator Plus could be your solution. It's a faster setup than PLCs and HMIs. And it provides an alternative to those products. So the customers have some options, right? I'm using a PLC and an HMI, but I don't know how to program it. I'd like something else. I have a wall full of those biograph meters, but half of them don't even work anymore. I have these old enunciator panels, but they really don't tell you much. I don't want to have 20 panel meters in this cabinet. What could I do instead? Well, the ConsoliDator Plus is an alternative to all those different options. And of course, cost savings, because you've got one device that's going to be capable of doing so much. We talked about just bringing it with you when you go in here. Here's a great application story of how that works. What do you see here? You see a huge, actually it's not even huge. You see kind of a medium-sized steel building. There's no security guards. There's no outer gates. It's pretty much unlabeled. There was a sign here that had the name of the customer, but obviously we removed that. And that was it. And the customer who called on this building was actually going across the street to the refinery where he didn't get any sales. So he wandered across the street to this nondescript looking steel building. And it turns out the guy he needs to talk to, the guy in charge, who's also the engineer, who's also specifying the skids, it turns out they build here, is right on the other side of that door. No appointment necessary, no security guard to bring donuts to. You just walk in the door with the demo and the solutions guide, get a conversation going, and this customer turns into several $100,000 a year with sales. So you look for these opportunities everywhere you go. That's the moral of the story. Sure, maybe the big refinery is the place where you can get a lot of business. Okay, that's great, but you also bring it with you to all your skid manufacturers, to your smaller places, to your pulp and paper mills, your wastewater treatment plants, your engineering firms. You bring it everywhere that uses process instrumentation because they'll have a need for this. So if you like the sounds of this, how do you get a ConsoliDator Plus in front of your customers? Well, obviously, the best way to do that is to get yourself a ConsoliDator demo. And there's two ways you can do that. Borrow one from us. All you need to do is agree to a video call to review it so we can make sure you know how to show it. And you agree to show it to 10 good people in a week. Not 10 customers. That might be a stretch for some of you right now. But 10 good folks, 10 people who use or specify instrumentation. That could be your coworkers, other salespeople, engineers that specify, plant technicians, etc. And all we're looking for is you pay the shipping. We won't charge you anything for the demo. We'll send it out. You'll show it to your 10 good folks that week. Bring it back to us. Excuse me. If you don't want to work with us on that, but you can certainly buy your own demo. And I'm willing to offer anybody who wants to buy their own demo a great deal on them today for attending this web meeting. I'm going to sell it to you for 50% off our normal distributor price. So for $18.35, you can buy your own demo, but you got to place the PO before the end of October. Got a couple of weeks to figure out if this is for you. If it is, then we're going to offer you a hell of a deal. And then you can have it in your trunk for the next 2 years and just show it to every new customer you come across. So if that sounds like something you want to pursue, a little more information is available at PDD9000 for price and details. And then I've got our general contact information here if you want to reach out to anybody, have a discussion about this demo, send in an order, etc. Of course, I'll share my personal information at the end of the presentation. So if you want to reach out to me and talk about it, I'm more than happy to do that. What other ways are there for you to show the ConsoliDator Plus? Well, beyond just the demo, we've got plenty of literature available for you. So we've got our two-sided ConsoliDator Plus poster, again, with that actual size consolidator on the front. And we've got our 4 to 20 milliamp solutions guide, a phenomenal leave behind, but more importantly, something you can walk through every page of with your customer, talking about applications we provide. This is not a catalog, it's a solutions guide. So you can request copies of that online. We've got the links here. Or again, you can just email or call up, let us know you'd like some. And it really does walk you through applications, not products. It's a great way to get a conversation started. And of course, if you have nothing else, you have the PDD.com website. You can bring your customers there and show them all of our products and what they can do. Excuse me. So the question is, do you want us to contact you about getting a Consolidator Plus demo. Is this something that you're interested in doing? I'll give you a second here just to send some responses in. It looks like there are some of you who are interested, and I'm glad to see that. We still got the last few responses coming in, it looks like. All right, well, thank you. Hopefully we have inspired some of you by the looks of this to get your hands on a demo, which is nice to see. And this is the last offer I've got here to put on the table today, which is really the dream offer for someone in today's pandemic environment. You see, we can bring our knowledge and our products to your customers, and we can do it virtually. We can set up the call using our programs like GoToMeeting, or we can use whatever program you prefer if you have your preferred way. Maybe you happen to be very familiar with Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and you'd rather do it like that. Well, that works for us too. Or we can set it up. We'll bring the topics, we'll bring the discussion, we'll bring the answers to your customer questions. We will essentially do the sales call with you there and be the expert. Hell, we'll even call your customer and arrange the time for everyone to get together. So the question is, do you have customers you want us to help you reach? Because if you tell us, we will be happy to work with you to set this up and walk through this demo unit with them. We'll literally do all the work to help you make the sale. We just want you to help be the closer at the end and give us the contact we need to discuss the consolidator with, maybe talk a little about what you're thinking and the customer history to prepare us. But then we'll do all the work. So I thank you very much for your attendance. There's a couple of questions from the audience I want to make sure I address. A few questions here. From Ryan, we have a question about classifications. I noticed earlier that there was an oil tank. Does this have hazardous area classifications? And the answer to that one is, right now it does not. However, I suspect that by the end of the year, you should be seeing a Class 1 Div 2 version of the consolidator. So if you've got customers with hazardous areas, this product will very shortly be of a lot of interest to you. And so I'd start talking to them about it right now. Also, from Doug, I've got a question about NEMA 4X enclosures for outdoors. Do we offer enclosure lines similar to those we offer for our panel meters? And the answer is we do. We have steel boxes, plastic boxes, fully covered plastic boxes, so you can't even access the buttons on the front. A whole line of Consolidator Plus enclosures that are available so that you can install this outdoors in a NEMA 4X environment. A question from Robert about data logging. The Consolidator Plus does not have data logging. It is on the list of product features to add. So certainly, by say the end of Q1 next year, I think we'll have some solutions for you. But right now, it is not a data logger. Zach had a question about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability. We do not have Wi-Fi. We do, however, or Bluetooth. We do have software that you can connect up to the Consolidator to program it with via USB. And we do have a hardwire Ethernet connection so that you can connect up to it from elsewhere in the world, but you need to connect the Consolidator to the local area network with a wired Ethernet connection. And Dale had a question about how much work is it for someone to replace those old displays with our Consolidator. And the answer to that question is it's a little bit of wiring. Obviously, they're not pin-for-pin compatible, so you're not going to unplug a connector and just plug it into the Consolidator. However, the signals are all the same. So all you're going to have to do is take a couple of wires out of the existing meters and connect them up to the Consolidator connectors. You'll also need somewhere to put the Consolidator, which means you'll need a 10 by 10 inch cutout in a panel somewhere. But you're not going to have to go into making any major conduit reroutes or anything like that. So it is a little bit of work, but no more than you would expect you'd have to do in order to install a different device. Luckily, all the connectors are labeled on the Consolidator very clearly. We've gone out of our way to make sure that we pad print the information right on the connectors. All of the cards get labeled as to what connectors go in them. And so we've done our best to try to make that process as seamless as possible. And Joe, great name by the way, had a question about sun shields and pedestal mounting capability. We do offer a sun shield for the Consolidator as an accessory. And all of our NEMA 4X boxes have pipe mounting kits
so that you can mount it outdoors on the pipe. Excuse me. All right, well, I thank you very much for your attendance today. I thank you for the time that you're willing to give us, and I hope that I helped inspire some of you to get interested in showing us ConsoliDator Plus to your transmitter and flow meter customers. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be sending out these slides again next week along with the recording, so you'll have all my contact information there as well. And I hope to be talking to a lot of you soon about this great new product that I think you'll all do quite well with. Thank you very much,